I couldn't control it. I was too obsessed. I woke up every morning thinking about heroin and where to use it. And it wasn't just, I thought at the start it was more about just enjoying it, right? And then it become that we've got issues here. So I was waking up really ill, had to go out and find money. Do you know what I mean? I obviously lost my job at this time.
Mate, tell us about your family, upbringing. What was home life like for you growing up?
I grew up on a mining estate in North East Derbyshire, Chesterfield. It was all right. I had behavioural difficulties as a kid. So I was always in trouble fighting and stuff like that. I got bullied a bit as a kid because I had a lazy eye and had a patch over one eye and wore glasses and stuff like that, you know. So that school type stuff. I've got an older brother, an older sister. My dad was a miner, but then obviously it was just after the miners' strike, so all the pits had closed down. And then he got into businesses. He started running businesses, had shops, burger vans on, car boot sales and stuff like that. He was a bit of a rogue, my dad were. My mum Margaret, she's from Scotland originally. So we had a big Scottish family that side on my mum's side, and a lot of my dad's relatives was in Australia, and they eventually came back over. But yeah, I had an older brother. I got on with him, our Patrick, and I've got an older sister. Yeah, so I went to senior school after that, and I just ended up fighting all the time. I got into boxing, so people picked me as a target because I ended up sprouting up, being a big guy. So I ended up being a target, got kicked out of school. I ended up in a behavioural school, a residential behavioural school. So Monday to Thursday I was in that school, and then at home at weekends. I settled down after a couple of years. I went back to a normal mainstream school. I did all right, passed my exams and that. Yeah, so yeah, it changed. I started to grow up a little bit, you know. But yeah, so my dad was a short guy as well, and he bullied me a little bit because he was a short guy and I was sprouting up and that. So do you know what I mean? I was sort of like the black sheep of the family. So there was a lot of issues with him there. 16-year-old. He asked me to leave the house because I started getting involved in crime and stuff like that, and drugs. Yeah. When I left the house, the family home, I got I got my own place, and then I went to college as a car mechanic. So I trained to be a car mechanic. I got a placement at Wadham Kennings Ford. Things were going all right, got a girlfriend, got my own little flat. Things started to settle down again. Two major things happened back in the 90s. Car theft and theft of stereos, twocking, you know, taking away owner's consent was a massive thing. I grew up on a council estate which was quite impoverished. And then the rave scene it, and I got really into drugs then, not just smoking weed that my dad caught me with and kicked me out of the house. I got into ecstasy and amphetamines and stuff like that, and I started selling them. So the rave scene was a massive influence in my life and a massive turning point in my life. I was still working, still doing all right. Wadham Kennings shut down, where I worked, Wadham Kenning Ford, they shut down, and ended up getting into engineering. So I still had a decent job, but I was on night shifts, so I was taking amphetamine at work to keep me awake, and I was raving all weekend. All my mates were doing the same. I didn't know any different. My dad was a bit of a rogue, so he was buying some of the stolen cars that we was getting, car stereos. He were all up to, you know, he had garages and bits and bobs of this, and he always had his fingers in something. My dad growing up, he was always in the pub, 7 days a week. He'd come home drunk, drive home drunk. Do you know what I mean? I didn't see much of him really as a kid. So I think that, you know, with massive influences, being bullied as a kid and sort of like influences on my life and that. Massive change in my life was I split up with a girl that I was with, and then at the time all my mates were getting on heroin, and then because they were my mates. I went to junior school with them. I went to senior school with them. When I split up with this girl, I ended up doing the same as them, knocking about with them, sitting in the same room. I ended up smoking heroin, and then that led me on a massive bad path for years and years and years.
What sort of age were you then?
So I'd been about 18, 19, because I was driving at the time, so I'd passed my test and that. I was driving. So I'd have been about 18, 19, that age. So I was still going out raving, but rather than smoking weed, everybody was smoking heroin after. So, do you know what I mean, for the come down and that. So, but then, really, we sort of knew it was addictive, but not to the extreme that it absolutely wrecked most of his lives. So, and it did. A lot of people that I grew up with have either died, or there's a lot of people that are still, you know, that we're close mates, but probably still are close mates, but they're still out there, they're still using, you know, and I can't help them because, you know, I don't want to put myself in that situation. I've done it too many times. So, yeah, it can be difficult.
So you lost some close mates during that time?
Yeah, so for the last 20 years, people are dying constantly, you know, sort of like people that I grew up with, and there's not many people that are left that I grew up with. I think I don't really understand sort of like a lot of how we all sort of like got into it, because all my schoolmates were exactly the same. Do you know what I mean? Everybody I knocked about with was all into the same stuff as me. Do you know what I mean? We were all into the same stuff, so you couldn't see a way out of it because everybody was doing it. The estate was, you know, after the miners' strike was pretty bad. Sheffield, which was his next, was all Sheffield Steel, so all them businesses were closing down. So there were a lot of people unemployed. You know what I mean? So it was an hard time to be around, because I grew up in, like, you know, born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, you know, went out raving in the 90s, do you know what I mean? And it's that, a lot of people from that up and down this country are exactly the same, do you know what I mean, on these mining estates because of that.
So did you manage to, like, control your drug use? I mean, what was that like for you?
Control, I couldn't control it. I was too obsessed. I woke up every morning thinking about heroin and where to use it. And it wasn't just, I thought at the start it was more about just enjoying it, right? And then it become that we've got issues here. So I was waking up really ill, had to go out and find money. Do you know what I mean? I obviously lost my job at this time. Do you know what I mean? I had to go and find money, and that took me back down the crime route, shoplifting, petty theft. Do you know what I mean? And it was just a horrible place to be. Do you know what I mean? Waking up knowing that you're bound to that, but then, you know, I'd had periods where I'd stopped for a bit, but then it'd drag me back in again.
There's a lot of depression around it for you.
Yeah, so yeah, loads of depression due to the, you know, like knowing every night after I'd used it, it'd be like, I'm not doing it tomorrow, I'm definitely not doing it tomorrow, and then wake up in the morning and that obsession would just take over you. Then you'd have to go and find money from somewhere, either selling drugs or, you know what I mean, ripping people off, or theft, or...
How long was it going on for like that?
So it went on from from at 19 until 2008. 2008, some massive. I ended up moving to Manchester in 2000. I ended up setting up my own building firm. I was still on drugs, but I still ended up setting up my own building firm, doing joinery and stuff. So I did a lot of work in Manchester because I met a girl and moved over there to Manchester. And I set up this building firm, but what were happening were the money I was getting off these contracts was running out by Wednesday. So we're having to go and do petty thefts and stuff at night, shoplifting and stuff like that to get me through. Some of the days I'd never even go home. I'd just sit in the van because it interfered with me using. I was using in the Portaloos on site, you know, just to get me to keep going working and stuff like that.
Did anyone know? Anyone close to you, did they know?
Yeah, Yeah, my partner knew, her parents knew, my mum, dad knew, everybody knew.
Couldn't help you.
No, there was no way of helping me at all, you know.
I've heard it said before, that person almost has to get to the pit. They've got to get to the end of themselves in that before help can really happen.
Yeah.
Do you think that's true?
Yeah, so I hit a rock bottom. I had a really good job, a really good contract. And this was about 2007. Anyway, my money I was still using really bad. Me and my partner, obviously, because of my use at the time in Manchester, it was on the rocks. The relationship was on the rocks. We'd split up. I was in jail, and I made a decision that I wanted to go into rehab. And I went into rehab in 2008. I got out of jail, went into rehab in 2008. And it was that point that a lot of things changed for me. I had counselling while I were in there. I looked at a lot of stuff, you know, that was making me use. I looked at, you know, my upbringing and stuff like that, and a massive change. And it was 12-step rehab, so there was an element of like spiritual connection and stuff like that. You know, humility, looking at the wrongs we'd done towards other people, the wrongs that had been done to us, and then sort of like processing that, going through a major process. My mind changed a lot. My thinking changed.
So was that a Christian project or not?
12 step.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
through the 12 steps, like Narcotics Anonymous and stuff like that. So I started doing. So I got out of rehab. Started going to AA meetings, NA meetings. Started being around, ex-using addicts. We were totally abstinent. I did really well. I set up a project called A Second Chance. We started doing talks in schools about the effects of drugs and stuff like that. We was taking, people that was ex-addicts into schools and stuff like that. My life started to change. I got a massive turn in my life. I had direction. I got a nice little bungalow on the coast in Midlands, St Anne's. Got a car, nice motorbike, do you know what I mean? Got all these bits and bobs, this material stuff. And then I started tailing off. I stopped doing, I got a career. We ended up getting pulled into the prison service to do some talks to the prison service. The prison service liked us that much. They eventually employed us. But there was a lot, I'd already sort of like started to stop going to meetings, stop doing my morning readings, stop meeting up, lying. I was jumping up motorbike at 2 o'clock in the morning, shooting down to a woman's house. I was using everything external to fix myself again. You know what I mean? It had become about the money, the house, the car, girls, you know what I mean? Going to the gym, do you know what I mean? And I took my eye off the ball. And then a major event happened. This was our 5-year clean at this time, and a major event happened. My brother had got terminal cancer. So what happened I ended up back over Chesterfield, over here, and as soon as I got back, I relapsed on drugs. Do you know what I mean? Because it was going to be his last Christmas with us. So I relapsed on drugs. Looking back at it, I'd relapsed a long time before then in thinking, and it was my thinking that was driving me to the where I worked. Do you know what I mean? My fault. That faulty thinking had come back. It was like a default button had been flicked back to even though I'd gone through all this counselling and that. Anyway, so when I moved back to Chesterfield, I knew I couldn't go out thieving again, and I couldn't go out committing crime. Not in that sort. So I started selling drugs. I sold drugs for years. My brother died. Then I went on and I spiralled out of control. I got involved with a lot of people, from Sheffield, and I was bringing drugs over county lines, do you know what I mean, and selling around here. Then my dad died, so I got caught. All this was sort of like putting a toll on me. I was constantly depressed. I was blasé about it. I weren't claiming benefits or anything, and the police knew what I was up to. They were chasing me all the time. And in a quick succession, I got caught twice for intent supply on county lines because I was bringing it over into Chesterfield. There was a few who got caught. And it was like more of a cry for help. And it was like when I got caught, it was like, oh, thank God for that.
Well, like relief.
Yeah, because I knew that right, and then I didn't want to continue using. I knew I had a problem, and something had changed in me, and I moved back to my mum's, out my flat, and I stopped using. I was still on methadone, but I'd stopped using. I went back to my mum's. I knew I was going to go to jail. I knew I was going to get quite a big sentence. But I wanted, so I tried to clean my act up. You know what I mean? I got clean at my mum, went back to my mum's, got clean at my mum's. I was just in the process of applying for my driving licence. This was over COVID period as well. So I couldn't get sentenced. So it was a long time between me getting caught, because there was nobody going through the courts, and going to COVID, going to court, getting sentenced. So I cleaned my act up. I thought I'd get my driving licence. I'll get a delivery driver's job for like Amazon or something like that, and then hopefully they might just give me a suspended sentence, be good for such and such, and I tried that way, but I ended up getting sentenced anyway. I didn't get a job or anything. I ended up getting sentenced, and I got 5.5 years. But they reduced that to 4 years, just under 4 years, about a month under 4 years, and that was a relief. I wanted to go away because I knew if I'd stayed around longer, even though I was clean then, I knew that I'd end up going back out there using, because I'd stopped so many times before, 18 months here, 6 months there, and it always drew me back in. And I needed that time period away. While I was in jail, it was still under lockdown, so you couldn't go out your cell, and I got down and did some serious thinking, do you know what I mean? Thinking about my life and the way it had gone wrong, and obviously I got into reading scripture and stuff like that, and I started really getting into sort of like looking at who I am and how my thinking needs to change, and it was good to have that break. So I didn't really serve that long, to be honest. I ended up moving from a local jail, Nottingham. I ended up moving to Ramby prison, and then ended up at a Cat D. So I did my last 6 months in a Cat D. So I ended up doing 18 months, and I ended up.
Cat D's quite open, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was working on a farm in Lincoln. So I was 6 o'clock in the morning. I was out, and I just slept in a room, and they weren't cells. They weren't locked. Do you know what I mean? We could walk around, could do the gym. I'd go and sit with my mates down at chapel, and we were going to sit in chapel, and we all have a good talk. And ultimately, that's where my life totally started to make a massive change. Do you know what I mean? I saw a different way out. On getting released from jail, I knew I had to do something, so I got involved in a local church, Icon Church, and I was on a daily devotional. CVM's daily devotional, the code, and I was living in Tupton at the time, and then I moved from Tupton to Brimington, and I thought, who is this CVM? And I went on the app and I looked for the address, and it was only down the road. I'd moved just up the road, like 2 miles away. I thought, oh, this is too good. So I messaged Steve, and he said, come along on a Thursday calf. And I've been here ever since. Wow. So yeah, brilliant, massive change in my life. Yeah, just that, having a new direction in life, and do you know what I mean? Having people, community. Do you know what I mean? Oh, we're all going in the same direction. We're doing what we want to do. I've been part of community. I'm putting loads back into the community, helping other people. It just, I had to get myself. I was told this when I was doing 12 step. If you're in a really bad place, go and help somebody. If you go and help somebody, it will take you out of that yourself. If I start having faulty thinking and thinking about, do you know what I mean, poor me and all that, I'll go and try and help somebody else. I'll go and ring somebody else, and do you know what I mean? So that's what I try to do. And it's
powerful, mate. It's a powerful story, and a lot of blokes will resonate with it because there's brokenness in us, or a wound or a trauma that often we're not sure how to even express or articulate, and we prop up our lives in different ways to try and mend that wound and that hurting.
Yeah.
And you found that old man, that old way is gone. He's died.
Yeah.
There's a new man alive now, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot to do with sort of forgetting stop looking at my old past and who I were and what I've done, but look at the good things I've done as well. Do you know what I mean? And what good things I can do and how I can help other people. I've changed. I try not. Obviously, I still like going to the gym and I still like cars and I still like all that stuff. But I try not fix myself with that. I try not keep my eye off the ball like I did when I worked for the prison service. And do you know what I mean? I had second chance. I've gone down that road. I know where that leads. When I start making it about fixing me from external things like cars, drugs, money, do you know what I mean? If when I start chasing them, I lose me. Do you know what I mean? In that. And I think a lot of people do that. We try and fix ourselves from the outside, don't we? Do you know what I mean? And we have it. I can't go over my own thinking because it can be faulty at times. Do you know what I mean? I have to, double check with people. Saying, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Do you know what I mean? And I've got some close mates.
Yeah, that's good. So some really close accountability in your life.
Yeah, so I've got some good close mates. I've got a total new crowd of people around me. I'm part of a couple of men's groups, Edge Faith Community Men's Group. We go out and have meals together, and then also I've got all the people that I go to church with, and we've got a men's group where we go out and have meals together. And do you know what I mean? So I still see some of my old mates. I don't spend too much time with them because I don't want to be pulled back into that. So I keep myself around the people that are going in the same direction as me. Do you know what I mean? They know about me and stuff, that sort of thing.
One of the important components, I guess, and we'll lead to close with it, but you've got a faith, and we try and communicate that in ways that isn't really churchy and stuff. But how important is that faith in God now for you in terms of this new life you've got?
That is without finding that faith and finding that and then reading scriptures and finding out who I were through that, I wouldn't be here now. I had to go through a period of sort of like really contemplating, meditating on who I was in my faith, and I went through that period for 7 days, and I broke down and I knew I couldn't get out of that jail cell of who I were. So it's ultimately through then I've seen so massive changes through having faith that's led me to here, that's led me to this point now where I am. And I don't worry about my future too much. I don't worry about what's tomorrow and that. And that's through faith, not, do you know what I mean? Not anything that I could do. It was through faith that's changed me.
It's powerful, mate. What would you say, just to close, to some guys who may be watching this, who are living a life that's that life you had at its very peak of chaos, disorder, just where your heart's just shot through.
Yeah.
Where you were, what would your advice be to those guys who might be watching who are at that point and think, mate, I don't know how to get out of this?
Just for me, I had to go and ask for help. I had to go and put myself, my faith in something else. Not just faith in my spiritual faith. I mean faith in somebody else, because I knew I was broken. I knew there was something not quite right. And I had to, and I tell to a lot of people, I said that the best way you can do this is go and find some voluntary work. If you're in the madness, and you want to make friends, go and do volunteer somewhere, because out of that your confidence will grow, you'll meet new people, you'll start getting a community around you, and that's how I did it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's it. Just go and ask for help and go and get some voluntary work.